Thousands of people die earlier than they otherwise would because of the poor air quality. And so the response of the bureaucracy, which it seems to me has created a good deal of this problem, is to punish the motorist further, and particularly the poorest motorists with the oldest cars, and that they're going to be hit, as of today, by this T charge, which is an extra £10 on top of the congestion charge of £11.50. So £21.50 to enter central London if you're in an old car that you may have been encouraged to buy by the government and by EU policy. And is that really fair, or are there other problems? Shouldn't we have a tax on Transport for London for gumming up all our roads and making it impossible to go along the embankment nowadays, or for closing Bank Junction? The constant effort to make moving in London more difficult, the narrowing of pavements, the sequencing of lights so they seem to be red more than they were in the past. They're inevitably red more than they were green, because otherwise traffic would keep on crashing, and we don't want that. But the question I'm hoping people will call in on is whether this is the right answer or whether other things should be done. I heard Nick Ferrari earlier saying that we should be looking at the heavily polluting buses and whether that isn't something that should be attended to. But it seems to me that this is one of those instances where the politicians and the bureaucrats have created the problem, and now they're punishing the motorist, the British voter, for problems of their making. And this doesn't seem to me to meet the measure of fairness. As it happens, I think it's one of the great scandals of the modern time that the setup to encourage diesels was based on an obsession that petrol engines were putting out carbon dioxide, a failure to consider what the risks of diesel engines were, a cabal with the producers who then fiddled the tests to get it through. And we know all this. This isn't speculative. We know that Volkswagen fiddled the tests and were only caught when the Americans discovered what was going wrong. But the EU, the British government and the motor manufacturers were all in it together. And it doesn't seem to me right that it's the British motorist who should then be penalised, and that the effort should instead be to increase the supply, whereas what the Transport for London has been doing is to reduce the supply. And demand is growing, and there may be reasons to try to control the demand as well, but that actually reducing the supply of road space in London, when still most people want to drive around in their cars, seems to me the utmost folly, and is making congestion worse, because one of the worst things for air quality is when there's heavy congestion. So it's almost a self-inflicted wound for which then the British motorist is punished.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.